What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in true crime and sometimes the best guests in some other mysterious areas. Tonight, this is true. True crime intersects with the extraterrestrial world. There is an intersection and nexus of sorts, and we'll explain why. You've seen the man with Cleveland, the land written behind him. He is world-renowned crime reconstructionist Scott Roeder. He says the evidence that he examined related to that Las Vegas backyard alien sighting, where neighbors say they recently saw a UAP crash, and as I said, large aliens emerged from the scene. He can prove that extraterrestrials were in fact there. Maybe not prove it, but he can explain why he believes that they were there. All this, of course, begging the question, do you believe? And we've got an amazing panel to discuss this. Scott Roeder, he is founder of The Evidence Room. He is, as I said, an internationally recognized evidence specialist who's consulted over 1,500 cases since 2001. He testified at the world-famous Oscar Pistorius trial. And we just had him on to discuss the details of that on a special new series called Surviving My Biggest Case. Bringing in here Ron James, another guest. Before we get to him, by the way, Scott is host of the podcast Crime Scene Time Machine. And Dr. Michael Shermer, the man in the middle. He is the founding publisher of Skeptic Magazine, the host of the podcast, The Michael Shermer Show, and a presidential fellow at Chapman University, where he teaches Skepticism 101. Sounds like something my mother would teach. For 8 years, he was a monthly columnist for Scientific American. He writes a weekly Substack column. He's the author of the New York Times bestsellers, Why People Believe Weird Things and The Believing Brain, among many others. Next up, you've got Paige Fox. She was selected as a rising star by Super Lawyers, an honor earned by only 2.5% of the top attorneys in Illinois, 40 years old or younger, who have been practicing for 10 years or less. She gained this recognition through professional achievement and hard work. She is working actively as well to help prove to the general public that this stuff, meaning the UAP stuff, is not only real, its implications are profoundly connected to our everyday lives. And last but not least, I hope he's with us. We've got Ron James. You hear me, Ron?
Yes.
Awesome. Ron James is a filmmaker, an on-camera personality, a writer, editor, researcher, content creator, entrepreneur. He's also the director of media relations for MUFON, which stands for Mutual UFO Network. And he just released not long ago his newest film called Accidental Truth. Without further ado, let's get this cracking real quickly. You can follow us on Facebook, Insta, we are at Surviving the Survivor, Twitter, where I post show times, we are at Podcast STS. You can support us at Patreon and also on YouTube. The merch store, I was getting emails today. The merch store is wide open for business, so help yourselves. Before we get into this, Michael Shermer, how did you get interested in telling the other panel members that whatever they're saying is not true? How did that come to be?
That's quite the opening. Well, okay, so first of all, I never tell anybody that what they're saying is not true until I hear what they have to say. That would not be skepticism, that would be nihilism or cynicism. You know, Skeptic, this is the magazine I publish. Here's what it looks like. There we go. Latest issue on energy matters.
I didn't know they still had magazines, Michael.
Oh my God, it's physical. It's actually a physical magazine. Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Not very environmental.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, skepticism is just a position you take where you ask for evidence and you go through the process of evaluating evidence. How do you know who we should believe or what we should believe? You know, knowledge is defined as justified true belief, or what constitutes justified. In science may not be the same as in criminal justice or journalism or any of the other social institutions we have in which we have to make a decision about what we believe for public policy or whatever. So our position is that, you know, we should use the best tools we have of empirical science and rationality things like Bayesian reasoning and signal detection theory and statistical detection theory, and any ways of testing hypotheses, randomized controlled trials for medical experiments, things like that, to determine what we should believe about whatever. So in the case of the UAPs, it's an interesting phenomenon because I've been tracking, what used to be called UFOs, for over 30 years. This is something we publish a lot about in Skeptic, because these claims that you're hearing now, that, for a lot of people, this is the first time they've ever heard about this sort of thing. There's nothing new here. We've been hearing about, these sightings, and we've been seeing, grainy videos and blurry photographs for decades, really since the late 1940s. And still, we have no concrete evidence. There's lots and lots of anecdotes and lots of pieces of evidence here and there, but not enough to convince most scientists that, we now know we are not alone. We do not know that. We do not know that extraterrestrial intelligences have visited Earth. For that matter, we don't know that they're even out there, although I suspect that it's very unlikely we're alone in the cosmos. But that's a different question than the one, have they come here? And then one final bit. One of the famous sayings in skepticism is the ECRI principle: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So, if I give you an ordinary claim, like today, I took the 101 freeway and got off at the 154 exit to come to my office here in Santa Barbara, you could pretty much just take my word for it and believe me. But if I said, at the intersection of the 154 and the 101, a bright light hovered over my car and abducted me into the mothership and took me off to the Pleiades, where I talked to the aliens about global warming and nuclear weapons or whatever, you would not just take my word for that. You would actually need more evidence for that. So ordinary claims only need ordinary evidence. Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. And everybody in this conversation agrees that the discovery that we're not alone, that we have been visited by extraterrestrial intelligences, much less that we have their spaceships and their bodies, would be probably the most extraordinary discovery in the history of not just science, but the history of all humanity. So the evidence really needs to be commensurate with that, and it's just not yet anyway.
I will make the extraordinary claim that we are the future. Our podcast, as you can tell here, they're watching tomorrow in New Zealand, in a wintry New Zealand. Paige, to you, I will never spell your name without an I. I knew that, but I really spelled it without one. You come from a different, background, different angle on this. You're an attorney. What piqued your interest in this extraterrestrial world?
So really, I just got involved as of October of last year. Before that, I was very involved in true crime. That's really all I listened to in terms of podcasts for anything. And I came across the Unsolved Mysteries episode, the new Unsolved Mysteries. It's called Somewhere in the Sky. And it's basically about a mass sighting in Michigan. And so from my perspective, when I saw that, and there were over 300 911 calls from over 42 different counties, my first thought was, wow, that's a lot of evidence. Because, and it instantly piqued my attention from there, because you don't have, there's no situation. I mean, I can't imagine any true crime case or any other legal case where you have 300 eyewitnesses or 300 911 calls that's recorded, and radar evidence, and somebody saying it's not enough evidence for something to exist. So when I saw that, my first thought was, wow, like there is enough out there. I wonder what's out there. And that's when I really started digging and realized that there's not just one mass sighting event that occurred. There's multiple, there's numerous, there's a lot. And there's a bunch of other reasons and a bunch of other evidence that exists out there, in my opinion. So again, the more I looked into it, the more I couldn't stop looking into it.
And Scott follows a similar vein in terms of following the actual evidence, because he's a crime scene guy. Are you working? I mean, you have your own law firm, but are you working in any capacity in terms of UAPs with a company or an organization, I should say?
So as of April of this year, I reached out. I was watching, again, another documentary, and it was just the amount of evidence that seemed to be piling up, in my opinion, it caught my attention to the point where I reached out to Dr. Stephen Greer and Danny Sheehan, attorney Danny Sheehan, about this, kind of saying, look, like all of this stuff is out there. There's these, this new whistleblower law that's been passed in December, all of these different things that have happened. Has anybody ever thought about getting a group of attorneys together to push this stuff forward? Because there were just so many different legal implications I saw in all of it. And so I sent that email out one day and really didn't expect to hear back from anybody. And I heard back from both of them. And I talked with Danny Sheehan for a good time or a good while. And right now I'm working with attorney Derek Garcia from New Mexico. Him and I are working on getting a group of volunteers together, a group of attorney volunteers and other legal volunteers together, to basically push forward disclosure in one aspect. And the other one is to work on RICO matters, which Derek has been doing announcements about and stuff. But yeah, taking legal action in court. So that is as of April. We now have over 180 volunteers that have reached out so far who are interested in joining the team. So yeah, that's the capacity we're in so far.
Hopefully the aliens aren't racketeering yet with a RICO target. Ron James,
I'm not worried about.
Ron James, are you coming to us tonight from Roswell, New Mexico? Is that correct?
In Roswell right now. They just wrapped.
How was the conference? What was it? Give us the headline from the conference in Roswell, New Mexico. For those who don't know, there was a big confidence in UFO Central this weekend. What's the headline out of there, Ron?
Oh, just the usual suspects gathering together. I came because my movie was selected by their film festival, so and I have to go to the dinner in like 2 minutes. But it's really interesting to meet you, Paige, because MUFON, we're the Mutual UFO Network. It's the oldest and largest organization studying the topic, and we're dedicated to the scientific understanding of the UFO phenomenon for the benefit of humanity. And we've been trying to do something very similar to what you're doing and putting together a group of attorneys that are willing to help represent these whistleblowers. And we've been very instrumental in Washington, D.C., getting some of this legislation through. We worked on this particular legislation. We had some actual effects that we were able to put into the law before it got finalized, working with Gillibrand and the rest of them, Gallagher and Andre Carson, among others. So we got some of the language changed in that to make it a little easier to work with. And my new movie, Accidental Truth, I'd be really interested in the Skeptic magazine review of that film. I did the best I could to lay out the case for the crash retrievals and the existence of materials and existence of secret programs studying the technology. And this film is laid out just as if I was an attorney making the case to the jury. And it's won 14 awards so far. It's narrated by Matthew Modine, and it's been in the top 10 on the Apple documentary charts since it came out April 8th. It definitely required reading for anybody that wants to be brought up to speed on the topic.
And Ron, where can we find Accidental Truth?
It's on all the rental platforms: Amazon Prime, Apple iTunes, the Redbox. All the basic places where you can rent a movie online. This weekend and I'm not trying to advertise the movie, but we do have it on special for National UFO Day. Yeah.
By the way, happy National UFO Day to everyone. I had no idea, but
amazing.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Ron, did I hear you right? Are you gonna have to jump in a minute? Did you say?
Yeah, I have to. They're having the award ceremony for the film festival, and they told me I should be there. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue. When you have to go, you just hop off.
Okay. We're also, I'm the media relations director for MUFON, so I work with all the people that want access to our.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. I will watch that tonight and give you my review.
You can send me an email at Ron James Contact.
$3. That's cheap.
And I would love to talk more. I would love to talk more about about the attorney project and everything too. That would be great.
You're included in an email chain, so I have your contact, and I'd love to reach out to you and have that conversation.
100%.
I believe in healthy skepticism. I'm not a tinfoil hat person. The film that I've put out is very it's all evidence based with actual government documents. We have a Freedom of Information Act response that admits that they have material from crashed UFOs, and that's where it came from. And it also has pages and pages of reports about these materials, speculating what they might be capable of. And this came straight from the Defense Intelligence Agency. So we put that in the film. The stuff that you're hearing from David Grush and everything else, this is going to come out and be proven to be fact in our lifetime, probably sooner than later. I know a lot about what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, and I can tell you that what Grush said is absolutely true, and that it is going to be made public in the not too distant future. So the people that have ridiculed this story, all the way from something strange happening here in Roswell, through secret programs, through reverse engineer, non-human technology, materials that we've recovered from these craft that have led to technological breakthroughs. The people that have poo-pooed this for all these years are going to be on the wrong side of history very soon. And you can, I have that on very good authority. And my film kind of broke the ice. All the people that are making the headlines right now are in my film making these revelations, and it's almost like the headlines were ripped from this documentary. It's incredible to watch it unfolding. And I've been told by a lot of people that this film was one of the things that made them realize they don't have anywhere to run anymore.
The movie is The Accidental Truth. You heard you can find it on Amazon Prime, anywhere else you watch movies. Check it out. It is all the rage right now, the topic of UFOs, aliens, UAP, et cetera, et cetera. Scott Roeder, to you. And again, Ron, whenever you have to get going, you just let us know. Okay. Ron's out of here. I actually have a line into Dan Zetterstrom, who's joined us before, so he may hop on to replace Ron. We will see. But there is news, and Scott.
Yes.
I know that.
Well, first thing I'd like to modify the headline: aliens crash in Las Vegas, according to famous. Well, I don't know about that. Crime Scene Reconstruction, Scott Roeder. I don't know if aliens landed in Las Vegas, but what I do know is that after, and maybe I should do like how I got into the UFOs, like everybody else did.
Yeah,
so
let's do that.
Really
take a half step back. How did you get interested? Because you're a crime scene guy from the true crime world. How did you pivot? And there's other news as well. We'll jump around and get to the places we need to be. But how did you get into this world?
Sure. I started when I worked on the Oscar Pistorius case. I met Australian journalist Ross Coulthard, and we became friends over the years. It's been about 9 years now. He's had me do shooting scene and crime scene and suicide reconstructions for cases in Australia. So we've maintained that relationship over the 9 years and worked on several real life homicide cases where we tried to affect justice where justice hadn't been done yet, just kind of in our area of expertise. And we continue to do that. A lot of people don't know Ross is he's an investigative journalist in the crime world. That's his first thing. And then this UFO thing came up with him. He started as a project, wrote his book, did the documentary. Now he's got the Whistleblower guy. And so over the years, he kind of, was in my ear about it. And I started to perk up, get some rabbit ears. And one time about 8 years ago, I went to Dallas, Texas. And being a shooting scene reconstructionist, of course, I'm going to reconstruct the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And I think most crime experts, similarly situated as myself, believe that was a conspiracy. There was multiple shooters. That is a fact. I don't think anybody can make a reasonable argument against me. If they would like to make that argument, happy to have a separate show about that.
Michael Shermer.
Yeah. All you have to do, Mr. Shermer, is look at the Warren Commission, and you'll realize what a crock of crap that they tried to force feed.
I don't want to go. This is a separate 9-hour show. But Michael, very quickly, that's obviously one of the biggest, conspiracy theories in the world. The JFK.
Not a theory at all. It's a fact.
Michael, your quick response to
on JFK?
Yeah,
just on JFK.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, so Oswald was put on trial. Vincent Bugliosi convicted him, and the jury returned a verdict of guilty, and there was no one else charged within an hour.
That's ridiculous.
And Garrison put on trial. Garrison ran a trial in which Clay Shaw was acquitted. There's the convergence of evidence points to Oswald as the assassin. There is no convergence of evidence to any other person. Name a name.
Yes.
Who did it? Name names. Who's the other assassin? Name
You
them.
gonna let me talk, Mike?
CIA.
Go ahead.
All
No, the CIA is too big that's not a name. Who would you try? Paige, you're in the law business. You can't.
Wait,
put
first of all,
CIA
this is my time here, Mike. Let me just. We'll get back to you in a minute, Mike.
Who in the CIA?
So, Mike, we'll get back to you in a minute. So, as I invest as a crime, you're out of your. I think you're out of your league in that conversation. When you do the shooting scene reconstruction, then come back and talk to me. You have not done a shooting scene reconstruction in Dallas, Texas, have you?
I've been there.
Have you?
Yes.
Have you done the reconstruction, Michael?
Yeah.
Have you gotten that exact gun?
All you got to do is look out the book depository building at the X on the road. Anybody.
If this is how you run your Skeptic magazine, I think that people need to take a pause.
Tell us, who would you put on trial as the other?
First of all, I'm not under cross-examination right now. I'm telling how I got.
Who would you? If you're a lawyer, you can't just say I'm putting on trial the CIA. Name names. Who did it?
Okay, first of all, I'm not answering your question. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. So
you don't have an answer.
If you let me talk to my story, Mike.
All right, Scott. Let me jump in 1 second. So, Scott, is your claim, and I don't want to stay on this because we're delivering UFOs.
It's a ridiculous argument. I mean,
you
got to come to me more with
Scott. Do you believe there were two shooters? Is that what you're saying?
There was 2 or 3 shooters. Now, this is not just my personal opinion. If you go back and you talk to the world's greatest authority, the Mount Rushmore of crime and shooting scene reconstruction experts and forensic pathologists, Dr. Cyril Weck, who was 38 years old at the time Kennedy was assassinated. He is the foremost historian on the issue of the Kennedy assassination. It is a fact that one man could not have made those 3 shots. It's a fact that John F. Kennedy was shot from the front, right, not the back. If you know how bullets react, you know that when a bullet goes into the brain or into the body or into the tissue, it creates a smaller hole on the entrance and a bigger hole on the exit. Now, this was a .223 round that blew the back of John Kennedy's head out, and it entered from the front. And then you've got this whole magic theory BS and all that. It's been proven beyond any reasonable doubt. And this is the last word that we'll have on this subject. Proven beyond any reasonable doubt. Any reasonable doubt.
I'll tell you what.
There was multiple shooters.
First of all, I need to show.
Not even enough evidence to convict, to get an indictment on Lee Harvey Oswald.
Here is the headshot. Frame 313.
I've done the reconstruction. Mike, put your book down.
You can see right there. You're
not going to educate me, bro.
You can see right there, the brain matter is going up and forward, not back and to the left. The brain matter from the headshot, which came from behind.
I'm gonna have you listen. First of all, I need a show for Tuesday. It's the one hole in the week and it's the 4th of July. What better day than JFK? I will circle back with.
I have an explanation for the magic bullet. This is my book. I wrote a whole book about this.
I will say, can I go ahead and say that I think that the JFK, the assassination is direct. I think it's related to UFOs. Dr. Stephen Greer has a death warrant essentially for Marilyn Monroe. So it's all related, and it's all based in evidence. It's all based in evidence.
All right, I'm gonna have you guys. I'm gonna have you back on JFK, but let me just fill the audience.
That's how I got the nexus into UFOs after I found out that Kennedy was killed by more than one shooter. Fact, court of law, you cannot disprove me. Then I was like, well, why would they want to kill JFK? So I started digging deeper and reading all of this FOIA stuff that was coming out where they try to declassify new information. And the thing, just what Paige said, came out was a note that the FBI was spying, as we all know by Edward Snowden, on all of us every day for everything that we do, which used to be a conspiracy as well, Mike, right? And but we know that's a fact, right? So so she died because she told her friend, who was a news reporter, kind of a gossip magazine reporter in Hollywood at the time, that John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, during pillow talk, when they were having sex, either before or after to impress her or whatever pillow talk, that she said that they saw aliens and bodies and so on and so forth. And she was killed. We think that she was assassinated by a suiciding, as we see a lot of this woman. And I think there's evidence, a reasonable suspicion, which is the standard, that she was killed because of what JFK and RFK told her.
And we are going to get back to that. Let me fill in the audience about what happened in Vegas. This was there are developments in that story. So the Las Vegas family that claims to have seen large aliens emerging from a craft in their backyard, they have now hired an attorney. And the attorney for the family is warning trespassers not to go on his client's property, adding, and this is a quote here, that they have discovered 2 non-human life forms in their backyard. Let me repeat that. The lawyer is now saying they've discovered 2 non-human life forms in their backyard. On April 30th, around 11:50 p.m., a Las Vegas Metro police officer's body cam. This is not the neighbors, but this is Las Vegas Metropolitan Police. Their body cam recorded something streaking low across the sky. That was confirmed later to be a meteor, which Scott does not believe is the case. They called 911, and the neighbors, and this is a direct quote, there's like an 8-foot person beside it next to this craft, and another one is inside and has big eyes, and it is looking at us, and it's still there. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it, and a big mouth. They're shiny eyes. They're not human. They're 100% not human. So that takes us to what we're talking about today. And I'm going to deliver the baton now to Scott. Scott, you sent me some notes, which I passed on to our guests. You say that when you're reconstructing any kind of events, whether it's a crime scene, an accident scene, a murder scene, an alien encounter, you have to remember several items. One of them, compelling evidence. There was a green object caught on multiple cameras. Tell me about this, and just let's leave time to get through.
Yeah, sure.
I want to make sure that Michael has time to respond. He's
Sure.
going to sit here and get berated by everyone else on the panel.
Yeah, I know. I apologize, Mike. I don't mean to be so rough with you, but I call them as I see them, and I take no guff. So the way, because I'm from Cleveland, you know what I mean, and we don't care. So when I saw the footage from the police officer's body camera, and listen, I'm not a ufologist. Nobody's an expert in aliens. We're all just spectators, I think, at this particular point, and we're trying to figure it out. But when we saw that, I've seen 2 shooting stars in my life, one not that long ago in Cleveland, and then once when I was golfing in Palm Springs. And the thing, on the 2 anecdotal occasions that I did see them, they went by really fast, and they didn't seem to be green. And when I looked at this footage from the police officer's body camera, it does not seem to be manipulated, and it was put out from the Axon body footage camera, which I'm very familiar with because I look at the Axon body footage as part of my regular day job every single day. That's how we break down the sequence of the time in between shots fired and so on and so forth. And it's very reliable. It's about 30 frames per second. It's not overly great resolution. I'm also an expert in video analysis, which is why I jumped in on this case. So the first thing I saw was the footage of the meteor. I'm like, yeah, maybe it's a meteor, but it was really green. It was really big, and it was really slow. I'd never seen a meteor caught on camera that took that long to traverse the sky. And then there was a couple of other, but it could be a meteor. I don't know. But then there was a couple of other views of that meteor where it looked like something where it went right over the top of this guy. It had a tail on it. It looked like it was in real time because you could hear the guy talking. And it seemed like there was something traveling in the tail. What was it? I don't know. But that was the first thing that I looked at. I was like, well, and then what happened afterward, it seemed like there was a nexus or a causation between that event and then the event to follow. Now, is it a meteor? Maybe it is. Is it something else? I don't know. And the thing I was going to say before I got into the whole spiel before, I didn't say that there were aliens. I said that I was able to capture something moving on the film that these people reacted to and were scared of. And I feel I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt certainly to the preponderance of an evidence, that there's something in that footage that shouldn't be there.
And we're going to get there, Scott. Michael, so you know the story much better than I do, but essentially some sort of craft crashes at this backyard in Las Vegas. These people call. We've all heard the 911 call. They sound sincere in their fear or their trepidation, their concern. Let's take this kind of bit by bit, because you do see this green object on the body cam footage. What do you make of that?
Probably a fireball. You know what a fireball is? It's a larger meteor, apparently slowly moving because it takes longer to burn up. There's tons of footage online. You can see fireballs just on astronomical sites or just on YouTube, and they look similar to that to me. Green probably because it's a night camera. But I haven't seen any footage of the aliens. You know that remember when the story broke, which is days after the Grush story broke, so it was like, whoa, that's weird. And then on the evening news, the local Las Vegas news, they go, okay, we're going in here. We got the body camera. Here it is, and then boom, it goes black, and they go, oh, we can't show it to you because Metro says this is private property, and we're not allowed to show somebody's private property backyard or whatever. Which is weird because if it was the shooting, it'd be all over the news and we'd see it endlessly, right? So, there's something weird about that. Either they don't actually have footage, or it's a hoax, or it's the actual alien. I don't know. Nobody knows. So, the trail goes cold there unless you have some footage that I haven't been able to see.
And Michael, that's interesting because the exact point you bring up about there not being footage is exactly why Scott thinks it is dubious that there was not some sort of creature walking around. I want to get to Paige though.
But let me address a couple of the other claims that have blown by in the last half hour. On the Grush story, so Ron said everything he said is true. Okay, hang on. Grush has himself said, I haven't seen anything. I just talked to people who said they saw.
We're talking to Las Vegas, Mike.
Well, no, it's okay. Grush is a big part of this, so go ahead.
I'm responding to the last half hour of conversation.
Michael, go ahead.
So Grush himself hasn't seen anything. So when you say what he said is true, I agree. I suspect that he really did talk to people who said they saw something in the same way that my friend Michael Schellenberger, following Grush, did some calls himself and also talked to whistleblowers, different people who said they saw something similar. Now, Michael Schellenberger hasn't seen anything, but he talked to people. And then the third source on that was Marco Rubio, who said, I talked to people who said something similar to what the people said, told Grush. So that gives us 3 data points of clearly somebody saw something or touched something, or there are more than one whistleblowers. Something is going on. We need to get to the bottom of it. Okay, that's good. And then Paige, this gets to your point about the 300 plus 911 calls. All that means is somebody saw something for sure. They're not hallucinating. It's not just some guy on an acid trip. But we get that all the time. I'm here in Santa Barbara. We're just 100 miles south of Vandenberg Air Force Base, where Elon launches his rockets. Every time he launches the rockets, they get hundreds of 911 calls. People, they have no idea what this is. This is quite common. And so that somebody sees something does not translate to extraterrestrial intelligence, aliens, UFOs. It just means somebody saw something, or a lot of people saw something. So let me just finish here with one final point about how to reason about these things. So the source I used I'm sorry, is there a problem here?
No, I'm just saying, you're a little off topic there, Mike. Come on.
What do you mean off topic? This is the topic. UFOs, UAPs. This is what I was told.
We're talking evidence. We don't need you to tell us how to reason.
Do you want my Michael, what am I doing here?
Michael, go ahead, Michael.
Sorry. I'm just saying, man,
I got other things to do. I can leave if you like.
I'm hosting the show, and Michael is here, and he's able and willing and a great guest. So, Michael.
Okay, so I start with Leslie Keene, who is the kind of one of the top ufologists today. She absolutely believes that we are being visited or have been visited by extraterrestrials. She wrote a book on UFOs, New York Times bestseller. Here is her assessment of what most people see when they say they see things. Her book is UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. She says that 90 to 95% of all UFO sightings can be explained as weather balloons, flares, sky lanterns, planes flying in formation, secret military aircraft, birds reflecting the sun, planes reflecting the sun, blimps, helicopters, the planet Venus or Mars, meteors or meteorites,
Swamp
space
gas.
satellites, swamp gas, spinning eddies, sundogs, ball lightning, ice crystals, reflected light off clouds, lights on the ground or lights reflected in a cockpit window, temperature inversions, hole punch clouds, and the list goes on. I'm just quoting from her. So the moment you say, well, people saw something, I'm sure they did. Let's take their word for it. But the question is, what did they see? Okay, so 90 to 95% chance it's one of those, which is not extraterrestrial.
And I listen, I appreciate everyone on this panel. I specifically asked Michael. For those who do not know, Michael's a very big name in this world. So we appreciate him being here. And there's going to be contrary points of view, and that's why we're doing the show. There's some news, and I want to get the page. So we have a large female audience, and if I don't go to our female, I will get yelled at, and I will get hate mail. So, yes, as I should. So we're going to get the page in a second. But there is some news regarding, since David Grush's name came up. Of course, he is a UFO whistleblower, and Michael alluded to some of it. But he spoke to News Nation once again, where he broke this news. And he raised a question. You have to wonder, at what stage does the president intervene? He believes that there's enough information now. And Marco Rubio, to Michael's point, has come out. Obviously, a well-known senator from my state here in Florida, who has revealed to News Nation on Monday as well that he, David Grush, is not the only high-level government official to come forward with claims about UFOs. So the question now is, who else will come forward, and what will they have to say? Paige, how do you see this pivoting in the coming days in terms of information that could potentially be released? And do you think there'll ever be a moment in the coming months, days, weeks, where Michael Shermer goes, I'm no longer skeptical? I believe you.
I think, I guess I would depend on what amount of evidence and what type of evidence he's looking for. But in addition to the Vegas incident that happened and the Grush story that came out, I agree with Michael in that the timing was weird. And the timing was weird in that because at the same time, there was also a disclosure conference going on that related to additional whistleblowers who I've personally spoken with firsthand, in addition to a list of 750 whistleblowers that has been given over to Congress right around that exact same time. So why exactly the focus is on Vegas and Grush, I'm not 100% sure. But the timing is weird. I would agree. But it's kind of hard, at least, I mean, yes, you can say that they didn't see something, or that what they saw wasn't a UFO in certain situations, but you can't tell me 300 people are not enough evidence, and unless you're talking about different evidence than something in a courtroom, because I can't think of any other case that you would go in and say that's not enough evidence because they could have seen something else. Well, that's fine. What are they seeing? Now, there's 100 different narratives you can go on that route, and yes, you can list all of those other things and the air, the weather balloons and whatnot. But that's been going on for 100 years now. And there's evidence. I mean, there's the same evidence that you have for this Vegas situation. You have that same evidence in probably hundreds of cases over the last 100 years. And it's all there. But depending on who you talk to, they say it's not enough.
And now I'm gonna hop in and kind of steer this, because I really want to stick to this Vegas backyard. But before we do that, Scott Roeder, as he mentioned, is personal friends with Ross Coulthart. He is the Australian investigative reporter who broke this, what some believe is a massive story, and what others think is not such a big deal, as I assume Michael Shermer would probably think, although I don't want to put words in his mouth. But Ross Coulthart told you, Scott Roeder, that he also is skeptical of the timing of the Las Vegas backyard aliens, thinking that it might be taking away from the David Grush story, which he broke and believes is much bigger. Is that what he told you?
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of listen, just because one story might be put out to take away from another story, it doesn't necessarily make the other story not true, or the first story less credible. But I believe that's what he feels. And I think about it. You have a whistleblower comes out. This guy has been involved. Apparently, the people who say they know this, they say that he wrote the briefings for the president of the United States for a number of the daily briefings type of thing. He was at that level of security, and for him to come out and say, "Hey, we've got reconstructed crashes. We have teams that go out and collect these UFOs, and we re-engineer them. We have dead bodies." That's a huge story. It's a huge story. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's a huge story. And that the Vegas thing pops out. It happened April 30th, May 1st, at midnight. But it didn't pop. They didn't get released into the national viral story until that day Grush came out. I find that suspicious, just like I find the Chinese UFO balloons or whatever that we shot down over the coast. That was pretty suspicious because that was going on right when the Nord Stream pipeline bombing came out. So, I don't put it past any government agency, especially a government agency that came up with the poppycock like the Warren Commission, to not misdirect us. Now, there's a lot of disinformation out there, and this could have been used as a tool to take away from his story. Maybe it's true. I don't know.
But
that's
by the way, a lot of people are asking how my trip was. I was in Israel for 4 nights, so I'm a little tired, and I'm coming back to. Usually, this conversation is nice and civil. Tonight's getting a little, it's getting a little feisty, and I don't know that I have my proper bearings yet, but I will make sure that we remain civil here as we discuss a pretty interesting phenomenon. By the way, I was listening, as I do, which is a very weird habit. I listen to Coast to Coast a lot, and I was listening to an episode with Art Bell from the early 2000s, and he had on a person who was talking in detail about aliens, how they reproduce, how they know, how we know, how they reproduce, et cetera, et cetera. It was fascinating to me just in light of where we are today, because I don't know how to say this nicely, but this guy back then, I'm sure sounded like an absolute crackpot to everyone. And now you fast forward to 2023, and I'm sure there's some people saying, hey, maybe this guy isn't as weird as he sounded. Maybe Art Bell was onto something back in the 80s and 90s when he started his radio show. Scott, I want to so we discussed this green object caught in multiple cameras. You talk about the next bit of evidence being the eyewitness accounts, which Page referred to. You're talking about the 2 brothers, Angel, 16, and another one I think is 14, and the father. What about this eyewitness account? What does that do to you from an evidentiary point of view?
Well, you're right. Well, eyewitness accounts are important to analyze if there's anything to corroborate that eyewitness testimony. And when you have contemporaneous notes, for example, that is a standard in the court of law. If you have let's say you write a note in your notebook, and then you testify, and then you go back to your note, and that was a note that's a contemporaneous note. That video that Angel's mother, I believe, took, that is the subject of my analysis, you can clearly see that is not a scripted video. These are not actors of any kind. These are just regular folks. They are clearly jawed. They are frozen in place. They step back, and then they pause. They are in a state of shock. And that's not something you can really fake unless you're, Leonardo DiCaprio or something. These are kids, these are just regular folks. And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, maybe there's something there. I didn't see anything initially until and we'll show the video. I think we're going to show the video, hopefully, so that everybody can see it.
I was unable to load that up, Scott. I'm sorry, but
okay.
But you'll have to illustrate it verbally. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a point in time at 6 seconds in the video where the Angel's wearing a red baseball cap, and the father is in front of him, and they're kind of walking staggered like this. And for 1 second, they see this object. I don't see the object yet, but they see it. Angel goes like this and freezes. His father goes like this and freezes for 1 second. And that's the 1 second that I focus in on. So I clip that 1 second when they separate their heads, because then I see something, a little something. It's a little bit faded, but then I zoom in on it. I put a X-ray filter on it. I put a heat sensor filter on it. I do a two-tone filter on it. The same kind of process I would do with analyzing a police-involved shooting to see if I can see something in the background. Admissible type of analysis. And then I take that 1 second and I slow it down to about 45%, extrapolate it into about 2.2 seconds. And at that time, with this kind of what's called a duotone filter, it brings out color. I see clearly, and I think I sent you a screenshot of it, and I sent you the videos. I don't know if you saw it yourself, Joel, but I'm happy to provide it to everybody. And you can go on to the Extraterrestrial ET Reality podcast. I do a full video breakdown for 1 hour on that 1 second of footage.
And I'll add the links. I will add the links to the show summary here.
But I see in that footage clearly a object that is not part of the background. I verified. Now, there was all kinds of claims. There was claims you could see that an alien in the fence. I looked at that, and in one filter, I'm like, nope, that's not anything. That's a shadow. I was able to dismiss that as a shadow. There was another guy who did his analysis. He's like, look at this alien. It's 50 feet tall. I'm like, nope, that's a palm tree. And this other guy's like, well, there's another. And I'm like, nope, that's the logo for the tractor trailer, right? And then I started doing my analysis based on what I thought was reasonable suspicion of where I might be able to find something. And it was at the moment they're walking in, and the kid is like, and that is a very natural reaction. I don't know if anybody's ever seen anything in the dark before, but you freeze, and then you go like this, and then they immediately put their hands on their guns, and they get out of Dodge. And that's what I needed to zoom in on that footage. And I find that video footage corroborates what I believe is their natural reaction to something. Can I say it's an alien? No, I am not saying that it's an alien. What I'm saying is they reacted to something that scared their pants off. And that was, their reaction was real. What they saw scared them. Listen, it could have been a guy in a Halloween mask that was, I don't know. I can't say what it was. What I can say is they were scared. They are not hoaxing. And then the other point is, if you go down on the list, you have to have non-converging interests that have similar testimony. The police officers are missing 16 minutes of footage. They're not doing, there's nothing special in that backyard. Angel put out that video.
We're going to come back to that real quick. A shout out
to LA. Don't think it's a co-seat.
We're going to come right back to that. LA Not So Confidential. Shout out to LA Not So Confidential. Dr. Shiloh has an awesome podcast. So welcoming her. To you, Michael Shermer. So Scott Roeder just detailed how he was able to determine that he saw something, not necessarily aliens, but he saw something on that film. What about the methodology he took? Does it sound rational and sane in terms of the way he got to that point of belief where he thinks he saw something?
Yeah, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what about the fact now that most people, most importantly, the family here that spotted this, that they believe they saw these 8 to 10 foot creatures? How do we explain that? How do you?
There, I don't know. You know, it's, again, it could be some guys in an ape suit or something like that, or actual visitation by aliens. So here, let's think about this in another context, because people ask, like Paige did, what would it take for me to believe? And if we really were visited by aliens and it was definitively and clear, I would just put "we were wrong" on the cover of Skeptic magazine, and here it is, right? Much like the Chinese spy balloon story. I mean, no one asks what's the credentials of the pilot that took the picture, or the experience of the pilot that shot it down. No one talks about any of the credentials of the people who saw the Chinese spy balloon. We just saw the Chinese spy balloon. True. And so that's what it would take, that if, the Secretary of State and then the Secretary of Defense, the President of the United States, Pentagon all said, yep, we have the alien spacecraft. Here it is. Then I would believe, no question about it. I think it would be fabulous if it was true. And maybe Marco Rubio or whoever will get to the core of this. That would be wonderful. So I have no objections to that. But let's say analogously, another subject that we deal with, Bigfoot claims about a another bipedal primate living somewhere in the Himalayas or Canada or wherever. There's thousands of stories about this, centuries of searching for it, and if you went to a biology conference and said, announced to your colleagues, I have discovered a new species, they would, of course, be thrilled. Oh my God, a new species of bipedal primate. This is huge. I mean, hundreds of thousands of years ago, there were half a dozen bipedal primates. Now there's only us. Maybe there's one other. That would be fabulous. Okay, let's see it. Well, it ran off and it was dark, and, darn it, I couldn't get the body, but I have this, kind of blurry photograph. It was dark, but if you use your imagination, you could sort of see the shape of a head and legs and a torso. That would not be evidence enough for biologists to go, okay, you've convinced us. They would say, you got to go back and bring the body back.
Michael, I think you talked about this at the very beginning, but in this is, they say, of an infinite universe we're living in. Do you tend to believe that there is some form of other, another life form somewhere? Or are you skeptical of that altogether?
No, I put it at a very high probability, maybe 99%, because I never say 0 or 100%. So say 99% that we are not alone.
Interesting.
Just the sheer numbers, the law of large numbers, hundreds of billions of galaxies, each of which has hundreds of billions of stars, each of which has half a dozen to a dozen planets. Just by sheer numbers, you're going to get, no matter how improbable it is, you're going to have lots and lots of Earth-like planets at the right habitable zone, distance from the sun, the right type of star, and so on and so forth. So it would be quite astonishing if it turned out we are alone.
By the way,
again, that's a different question than have they come here. That's a separate question.
Yes. And by the way, for those of you who have not ever visited Israel, when you go there, you start to think about these things tenfold, because you're in a very spiritual, holy place, and had me thinking the whole time I was there. Paige, I know you want to hop in. I want you to answer this question and then offer whatever you'd like to offer up. Kilo from Boston. She's got an attitude like my man Scott Roeder, Cleveland and Boston in the house. Why did the Vegas family get a lawyer? Why did they need to retain a lawyer, in your opinion?
My opinion?
Yeah.
I would think that the amount of, one, harassment that you're going to get and media attention is going to be outrageous. And if you look at the history of anybody who's ever come forward about any of this stuff, it's so stigmatized for whatever reason that they're not going to be believed. Almost certainly. And so having an attorney to represent them in, as far as what the media is coming at them, as far as what they're going to do, are they going to, how they're going to handle it? I don't know. They're going to be having a lot of conversations with the law enforcement that's involved and any other law enforcement that gets involved because of what they saw. So I can see a lot of different reasons why there would be an attorney.
And Paige, Scott Roeder, he offers testimony in a court of law, and so he's used to people like you, attorneys, cross-examining him. What about his? I asked Michael about this, but what about the methodology where he's, using these different color gradients to bring out the object, maximizing the size of the video frame, and he says he did see something. What do you make just simply by the methodology that he is using? Would something like that, in your opinion, hold up in a court of law?
I think that if it's been used in a court of law in any other situation, true crime or not true crime, then yeah, it should be accepted. I think that combined with all of the other evidence that he mentioned would definitely be enough to prove to anyone that this stuff, that it happened. Which I would say is the case in majority of the situations that have gone on over the last 100 years. A lot of the same stories, all of that evidence is right there. And it's not any different. And that goes, there's camera footage, there's video footage, there's radar evidence, there's hundreds of eyewitnesses. This is nothing new. So it doesn't surprise me at all that this happened. Whether or not, depending on the narrative that you follow with all of this stuff, there could be numerous different situations going on with that specific UFO or alien sighting. But I don't doubt it at all.
Ski Hat Sarah weighing in, science for the win. She says she is skeptical like Dr. Michael Shermer is. Scott Roeder, moving along here. You say that part of your, the way you process and reconstruct a scene is that you've got to have multiple witnesses that do not have converging interests. What does that mean? You talk about multiple officers responding.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's important, I think, when you have people that don't have similar interests, that have a convergence of similarity, where for example, in this case, we have the Las Vegas Police Department. And the Las Vegas Police Department, it's a crime. You can go to jail for making a phony 911 call. Okay, you can go to jail for that. That's a crime. If the police thought this was a hoax of any kind, Angel and his family would be arrested and be prosecuted. You don't mess around with 911. And these are immigrants coming to this country, whether they're naturalized or whatever. They're not going to try to call attention to themselves. Okay. There's a reason why in the Latino community and in certain other communities, there are crimes that don't get reported because they don't want to deal with the cops. But these people were scared. Okay. And the police believed them, and the police are not treating this like a hoax. And then the thing that I find interesting is that there are 16 minutes of footage. And in my experience, I've done hundreds of police-involved shooting cases, both defending the police and against the police. And where there is missing body camera footage, you can, I think, constructively construe the evidence in the favor of the pleading party. Okay, when you're holding back that evidence, and one of the police officers, I believe, even came out and said his body camera footage shows something. The police were clearly shook on the scene. If you look at that, policemen don't get shook. All right. When you go to crime scenes, listen, I deal with dead bodies all the time. When I'm reconstruct, you don't get shook. When these people don't get shook, they were shaken up hard to the point where they left that property. They said, "Hey, you see any more 10-foot aliens? Handle it yourself. I'm not coming back." You don't go to the police officer handbook. Aliens. What do I do? No, these guys were scared.
Scott, what do you think it was, Scott?
I don't know. I have no idea what it was. But what I can say is that whatever it was not part of the background. It was not part of the machinery. It was not there in other aspects of the video. It was there in that one, meaning it moved. It wasn't a stationary object. I captured it moving in a 1-second frame from right to left. It was approximately 35 to 45 feet away. And based on how far away it was and where the camera was, the heights seemed to be about level. Now, I didn't do a topography as to the slope of the road. And these are all things that you do when you do a shooting scene reconstruction. You want to look at all of the totality of the evidence because things like slope in the road could affect trajectory on how tall somebody is or where they're at from a relative plane on the environment. But it was approximately consistent with something about 8 to 10 feet tall based on how far it was and how tall it was in the frame. Now, and it also moved, and these people were terrified. So what I can say is that beyond, in my opinion, my expert opinion, these kids were not these kids, but these two kids and the father were not the hoaxers. The Las Vegas Police Department that responded were not hoaxers. Now, if there was a hoaxer, it was somebody that hoaxed the police department and this family. But this family, you got to stay off of this family. The reason why they got a police officer is because you're in Las Vegas. All right. These people are armed. You come into their backyard. I am armed here in Cleveland, Ohio. You come into my house, you get shot. You come into their yard, you're going to get shot. That police department said, and the lawyer said, leave these people alone. They are armed. Stay off of our property. That's why they got the lawyer.
And I got to tell you, Scott brings up a good point. As a guy who spent 25 years in broadcast news, a lot of it reporting, interviewing tons and tons of people. I was kind of mesmerized watching the body cam footage at how sincere they did seem. It did not appear that they were hoaxing anybody. It appeared that they really believed what they were seeing, whether what they were seeing were in fact aliens or something else. That is still to be determined. I think when Michael Shermer got up before, he logged in under Bridgewater, show me the money or else talk to the hand is the comment. Michael, the comment. I am not T-Pain, Michael. I want you to weigh in here because this is interesting on a different level. Based on my experience of seeing a UAP with my own eyes, they are real. During the experience, I didn't think about taking a video or picture. My mind was being blown, so I wasn't thinking about that. I think people conflate, Michael, UAPs with alien life, and that's, some of those examples you just read. Can you explain to people why that is? Just because you're seeing a UAP doesn't necessarily mean you're seeing something from out of this world, correct?
Yep. It's good to remember that the U in UAP and the U in UFO just means unidentified. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. No one's denying your experience or that you didn't see something. I'm sure most of the time, is that long list I read from Leslie Kean, people really do see things. The question is, what are they seeing? And most of the time, it's ordinary terrestrial phenomenon that eventually gets explained, or sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of, there's some non-trivial percentage of unexplained that never gets explained. We just don't know. And we have to live with that. That's just the way it goes. So the question is, what do you do with it then? So people did this with the New York Times article, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's article in 2017 in the New York Times about the Pentagon's program on UAPs. They had a quote in there where the government says they are real. Okay, the quote was referencing the videos. The government was saying, the Pentagon was saying the videos are real. They're not fake. They're not CGI. The videos are real. But people took that to mean, the Pentagon is saying they are real, as in they being the aliens, not the videos. Okay, that's a problem. Even the Grush story and Marco Rubio and Michael Schellenberger, I have no doubt that they're telling the truth, that the people, they really did talk to these people. And these people really did say, boy, I saw something, or I touched something that was really unusual, off-world technology I've never seen. That's entirely possible, and it still be terrestrial. It could be an experimental aircraft of some kind. It could be composite materials that DARPA is working with. DARPA is doing stuff that's decades ahead of any kind of normal science and technology.
Michael, explain DARPA for those who don't know.
Oh, the defense, DARPA, right. Defense Advanced Research, Developed Research Program, DARPA. Sorry, spaced out. And, they've been around for half a century. The CIA had its own Air Force in the 1950s and 60s. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-70 Blackbird spy plane, the stealth bomber, the B-2 bomber, and so on. These are all super advanced high-tech that you and I, regular citizens, we don't hear about until they're declassified, until decades after the fact. And we go, oh, wow. So that's what that was. Likely, in my opinion, if Marco Rubio somehow manages to get in to Area 51 or Roswell, wherever these things are being held, it's more likely that it's going to be some super advanced technology that we just don't want the Chinese and Russians to know we have. And that's why they're top secret. I mean, it could be aliens, but more likely something like that.
And Michael, one more thing for you. This is in today's 2 days Jerusalem Post, not just because I got back from Israel, but because I happened to catch it. UFO expert Paul Askoff, who I am not familiar with, but you might be.
I don't know.
He came out and said that a race of gray aliens arrived during World War II and has been actively involved in the development of flying saucers ever since, and believes that they have partnered with the United States government on things like fiber optics, microchips, synthetic fibers, stealth technology. This sounded wackadoodle to me because it's really out of left field with no real, corroboration. When you see stories like this in a mainstream, piece of journalism like the Jerusalem Post, what goes through your head? Do you just say they're doing this for clicks or what?
Well, I don't know. I speculate people's motives, but all those particular piece of technology you mentioned, they all have antecedents, that other technologies that preceded them, and you can track the history of all those technologies step by step. There's never been an invention in the history of humanity that didn't have some predecessor to it, and lots of other people working on it at the same time. The telephone, the internet, the search engines, the light bulb. I mean, you name it, just jet engines, any kind of rocketry and so on. Lots and lots of people are working on the same problems at the same time. And this is the problem with the patent office. They have to give it to somebody, but in fact, lots of people are working on it. So these things don't come out of the blue. It's unlikely that any Chinese or Russian agency is going to have super advanced technology that we have no idea how they did it, because we all steal each other's secrets. So, DARPA, CIA, they're pretty good at stealing secrets from other countries. So it would be unlikely that these UAPs are some kind of drone or Chinese spacecraft or aircraft that is, like a century ahead of anything we have, simply because that's not how the world works. We steal each other's stuff. Oh, there's your... Yeah.
There it is. Ask and ye shall receive. Thanks to the chief technical officer here.
Now, if you have the video,
Can I say
if you put it in a loop, it's really. I'll let you go, Paige. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna respond to the Rubio comment
Go ahead,
because there's I know one of the individuals who has spoken with Rubio. I've directly spoken with him. His name is Mike Carrera. It's at this point somebody that I've talked with quite a bit, and he is a government whistleblower, and that is one of the individuals who talked with Rubio. So we are getting to it, and there are a lot of whistleblowers.
And chief technical officer, if you can put it back up. So Michael, I'm sorry, Scott, please explain what we are looking at here. And
okay, you're going to hear it's going to be very ominous because now we've got a major thunderstorm rolling through. So let's set the scene in this scary Las Vegas night, April 30th, May 1st, in the early hours. This is what I'm talking about here, where their heads separate. And as their heads separate, this is a still frame. This is not part of the equipment because it's there and then it's not there. This is not any kind of a photographic anomaly. I've analyzed it. That is not the case. This is something, I don't know what this is, but this object here where you see we got the circle and pointed to clearly two circles and then some kind of a body that doesn't have that much form to it. It is approximately at their height. It's about 45 feet away. The best way to look at this is when I sent you the footage, it's called No Poppy because at the time, the wife that was filming this was like, no Poppy. She was scared. So I called the video No Poppy, right? So it's at 1 second and it starts on the right side, which would be the left side opposite. And it goes from right to left out of camera view in that 1 second. And it was at that same exact moment that these guys put their hands on their guns and got out of Dodge. And this is the moment that they froze where their heads came apart and revealed whatever that is.
Michael Shermer, what do you see there, Michael? Michael,
it's hard to see anything. I mean, I see something clearly, two vertical objects, but I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know.
I mean, they do look like what could be beings, tall, vertical for sure, but what exactly?
Or people? I don't know.
I don't think it's people. If you look at the totality of the body of the evidence, you can't say that it's people unless you're saying it's a person in a mask. But it's not people. This clearly scared them half to death to the point that they called 911. So it's not people. Let's guess again.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, to Michael's point, though, it could be two nitwits from down the street who decided to dress up.
But you know what? You might shoot those people, though. Listen, the thing that I think is a common thread, if you've ever confronted a bad guy or have been confronted by a bad guy, you don't have a state of shock. And these guys are armed. If they thought that there were a couple of nitwits in their backyard, they probably would have plugged that guy full of lead, right? But that's not what they did. They got out of there as fast as these guys all had guns. There are 3 guns with their hands on the trigger, finger to the side, hands on the gun, finger to the side of the trigger. Most likely safety was off. If these were a bunch of nitwits goofing around in the backyard, they'd be dead nitwits lying dead in the backyard. That I think you can promise them. But whatever it was scared them to the point that the people with the guns ran. Think about that. The people who were armed were so scared they got out of there. So it was something more than a people.
That's an interesting point. Scott, you spoke about 16 minutes of missing body cam footage. Explain that, and I like Paige to react to that from an evidentiary standpoint.
Right. The Las Vegas Police Department say that they redacted that footage, both audio and video, because they wanted to respect the privacy of the family. That doesn't make sense to me, because the family posted publicly a similar video from a similar point of view of their own backyard. So they essentially waive that right of privacy. Think of it like a HIPAA. If I say I got a heart condition and then you find out I have a heart condition, it's not a big deal because I already told you, right? It's not a HIPAA violation. So there's no secrecy if they already revealed what's in the backyard. So that doesn't make sense. And if they were going to redact it because they wanted to protect the privacy of the family, you wouldn't redact the audio. So to me, that suggests there's something visual and there's something that is said or heard that is being redacted. And I think, you can constructively say that a willful retention or redaction of evidence, you don't do that for no reason. I've never seen missing body camera footage where the allegation is nothing happened in that point of time. It's always the point where something big happened where the missing footage is.
Paige, your reaction to the fact that 16 minutes of video footage is missing. If this went to trial for some reason, just based on, let's say there was for hypothetical purposes where they wanted to prove, in a court of law or judge in a court or try in a court of law, whether the neighbors were telling the truth or not, how important would it be to have those 16 minutes of video footage that appears to be missing?
It would be extremely important. I mean, it would be what proves to anybody who's skeptical or who is a skeptic of this stuff that it does in fact exist. Sorry, the cat. But it tracks that they took that evidence and they have not released it, because that has happened in numerous cases for years. I mean, that's part of how you keep this stuff hidden, is by keeping the evidence from the general public. So of course they're going to hide it.
Michael Shermer, 16 minutes of body cam footage is not there. Scott Roeder in his notes to us, show notes, says that, and I quote here, there's never any missing footage of a non-event, implying that this is an event. How would you explain that there are 16 minutes that has either been redacted, released, or conveniently lost in this case?
Well, we could go the conspiratorial route and, like with Nixon, assume that he erased the 18 minutes because they were, rather condemning. That does happen for sure. But I don't know. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. All right. It's just missing evidence. And it's hard to interpret what that means. It certainly doesn't mean aliens. It just means something that we don't know. And this is the problem, with this whole field, my own personal frustrations with it. After 30 years, it's like, this is all we talk about. Is, missing footage, blurry photographs, grainy videos, eyewitnesses. How about let's just get to the bottom of it? Show us the damn spacecraft. Where are the bodies? Come on, Marco. I'm rooting for Marco Rubio to get in there and show us what they have. I mean, it's time, right? But here's the problem. I don't know what I don't know. I'm not in the government. What if we have national secrets that we don't want the Chinese or Russians to know about? And Marco Rubio gets in there and they go, well, Senator, here's what we're doing. Oh, God, I had no idea we have this program. Yeah, so you can't go out there and tell everybody what we're doing here, because then our enemies will know. So I don't want to be, just so super naive, like just, disclose all the files. Yeah, but what if the files, it's like the WikiLeaks, like I like the WikiLeaks thing. I didn't know the government was lying to us about all these things. But they also revealed a lot of secrets that put some of our spies at risk. So, that's not so good. Yeah. There's a reason there's national secrets. I wish there weren't, but, that's the world we live in. So I don't know.
By the way, I asked my beloved mother in the Holy Land today prior to this show, I said, do you think the United States government could ever lie to us? And she laughed in my face. She laughed in my face.
Yeah.
As a Holocaust survivor, there is no one more paranoid and skeptical than my mother. She would have been a great co-publisher with Dr. Michael Shermer. Scott Roeder, to you, and I apologize if we went over this, but again, I am slightly jet lagged for my own disclosure there. But for you talk about these 4 separate anomalies: Kermit the Frog, the Scream Guy, Skinny Bob, and Bloop. Who are these people?
Yeah. Okay. So in the files that I sent over to you, as I was going through the rest of the footage, as they say, because there was a lot of footage online, these amateur video experts were, going through and actually using fairly good technique to try to bring out things. So I was like, all right, I looked in those same areas and to see what I could find, right? And I found what 4 objects that I gave kind of cute names to because they kind of reminded me of things out of the zeitgeist in the alien lore. And one of the things out of the zeitgeist is Skinny Bob is apparently purported to be a video. Matter of fact, I saw a documentary, a very scientific analysis it's called skinnybob.org. I urge everybody to go there and look at the scientific process of the video analysis of that footage. Pretty interesting. Ultimately, they're skeptical and certain about it. But anyway, it's a very well-known name in the world of ufology, I guess, Skinny Bob, right? So the one guy looks like Skinny Bob to me. He's got the big head, looks like a classic gray. And he's hiding, or at least what I think. I don't know if he is Skinny Bob, but something that I think looks like that. I was able to catch a silhouette of it in a still frame on the front black square of the forklift that's facing the camera. Now, it's not at the point of 6 seconds when I see the 2 circles where the guys get scared and get out of there. It's at a different point of the footage. I think it's a 1 minute, 36-second video that you can get online. I think I was able to capture the most original version. Now, one of the things you have to look at is, okay, are we all going off of the same footage, right? Has there been any kind of tampered footage that's been put out there? So I didn't want to take the word of amateur youth sleuths on the internet that they were finding this stuff. So I'll do it myself, right? So I analyzed the video and I found several anomalies. Now, are they as clear? No. As the first image that I find moving, because actually I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a court of law that there's an object there and it's moving. I can prove that. And I think I'd have a jury that would agree with me on that. But the other ones, they're a little bit different because you got lights that are playing a factor. You got shadows that are playing a factor. And I couldn't capture them moving. I just captured them in a still frame. So I put them on a little lower rung from a speculative evidence standpoint as what I feel is more firm evidence, which is the moving object, because lights and shadows can play a lot of tricks with you. But, as I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this looks like this to me. And I put it out there as kind of a lower rung of evidentiary documentation. But it was enough in my mind to at least notate it as maybe there's something there. But here's the other thing. I showed it to a lot of people, maybe 100 people I've showed it to. And I took like a little survey around my own people, lawyers, doctors. That's the people that I talk to, right? That's for my business. And I gave it to everybody. About 65% of the people are like, oh my God, that's spooky. What is that? 35% of the people was like, I don't see nothing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of ontological brain block in certain people that because of their station in life. I had this theory because I think there's a lot of evidence of extraterrestrial life. Maybe not. Maybe time travelers. I don't know. Maybe multidimensional. Maybe they're not coming from outer space. Maybe they're coming from our ocean. Who knows? But the thing is, like, I think that, like, for example, like medicine, law, and science has the most to lose when it comes to in superior non-human intelligence, because that takes them from being really fancy humans to being really fancy cows like the rest of us. So I think people with a lot to lose are even more skeptical than just like regular everyday folks like you and me.
GM Flower here says, we'll take a little detour here, Michael Shermer. Talk Phoenix lights. How are those explained? Obviously, one of the better known phenomenons that happened, obviously, in Phoenix. And then not long after, I think former Governor Fife Symington came out and said he believes in UFOs. How do you explain those away, Michael? Because we see those very clearly in the sky.
Well, there were two different Phoenix Lights events. First of all, one of them was clearly military flares. They were dropping flares to track, at night. And lots of people saw those. Okay. And then, so Governor Simonton came out and with the little alien suit, made a big joke about it. And then later said, that was kind of stupid because I actually think it could be something. So for that, they're talking about the second event, which is less clear about exactly what that is. But that's really, that story has kind of died in ufology. I rarely hear people talking about that. I think because it's clear that so many of these sightings that happen near military bases are highly probable just something to do with what the military are doing, running experiments and testing things like that.
Paige, you were shaking your head no.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still talked about. It's one of the ones that it's been so discussed that it's very widely known, but there were thousands of witnesses, and Aaron Rodgers is on record, the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, saying that he saw it happen. He was flying somewhere, I think. And then there were 3 jets that went after it, our military jets that went after it after he saw this happen in the sky. So, I mean, it's still talked about. It's widely talked. There's a lot of celebrities who witnessed that have been on record talking about it. Like I said, Aaron Rodgers is one of them. There was another person who was flying a plane. I forget what his name is. Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell was flying a plane at the time of that incident, and he witnessed it also. He's been a big.
Paige, can I ask you, what difference does it make if it's a celebrity? I mean, why is that important?
I need people to listen. People, it's going to get people's attention. I mean, Again, if you're talking about what somebody has to lose, that's what somebody has to lose. It's going to be their career. It's going to be their being respected by the community. It's going to be anything like that. So why would you come forward?
Celebrities say dumb stuff all the time.
Even if he wasn't a celebrity,
I'll agree with Michael on that one. But I do get Paige's point about credibility. Go ahead, Paige.
Well, and even if he wasn't a celebrity, I mean, if I said my friend Aaron was flying a plane and saw the lights and then saw the pilot, the fighter jets fly after it, would you believe me then? Because I feel like Aaron Rodgers is more.
It doesn't matter. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, who cares? Scott Kelly made there's a nice clip. He released a tweet last week in light of the whole Grush thing of a speech he gave in front of a NASA audience. This is Scott Kelly, the astronaut and pilot, about how people think somehow pilots and astronauts have better perceptual systems, or they're more rational about what they see. He says that's not at all the case. And he gave examples, like we're up there in the space shuttle. We're looking out at the cargo bay, and there's something floating in the cargo bay. They go, oh my God, we left a tool there, or some kind of object came off, and we better do something about it. And they go on and on about this, and then they took pictures of it and analyzed it. Turns out it was the space station 80 miles away. Then he talked about other examples of pilots that think they see something, and they're going to rendezvous with their co-pilot. We're going to rendezvous, and it's a buoy on the ocean floor, on the ocean surface that they're going to rendezvous with. He said pilots make mistakes like this all the time, and there's nothing. His point was there's nothing special about our astronaut pilot perceptual systems at all. We're all susceptible to misperceiving things.
Yeah, Michael, I was going to ask you about the so-called Tic Tac UAP. These are veteran Air Force pilots that claim this all came out on 60 Minutes and other very highly reputable shows. Do you think it's just misperception in the skies?
Well, so here's an example. Again, our issue skeptic on this topic. So here we have the picture of one of the 4 famous UAP videos shot by the Navy pilots. So here you see this little object here was right in the middle, and then all of a sudden it shoots off. And the pilot goes, oh my God, look at that. Everybody analyzing this is just losing their minds. How could it be moving that fast? It goes all of a sudden, it's going this way, then it goes left, 7,000 miles an hour. What people fail to realize is that says zoom. And that went from 1.0 to 2.0 the moment this thing went like that. The camera just zoomed in on it. That's all. The object didn't move at all. It's astonishing. People somehow they don't know what the little numbers on the side of the video mean.
Michael, do you think that people are desperate to believe one way or the other, so the mind sort of plays tricks in their favor, in their own favor?
Not desperate. No, people just naturally misperceive things. It's everybody else around them that takes it to the next level. Instead of just saying, well, I'm not sure what I just saw, and just leave it at that, it's very difficult. People then make the leap. Well, if I can't explain it, then it's not explainable by anything natural. Therefore, it must be extraterrestrial or supernatural, paranormal, whatever. That happens a lot.
Paige, to you, and this I'm stealing a page, no pun intended, or pun definitely intended, from Scott Roeder. Scott writes, I think we have to keep in mind, and then Scott, I'll get your take on this, but I want to get it from Paige first, that there could be a direct campaign to dilute real events with fake events so that all events are taken out of the realm of credibility or simply intended to exhaust the general public and frustrate them not to pay attention to it because it's just too difficult to figure out. That is the definition of a PSYOP campaign. Do you think the United States government would run such a campaign against its citizens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I think that there is, absolutely, yes. They would run that. And I think that is, again, if you look across 100 years of all of this, it's there and it's available to us. I mean, there was one question that asked if there were 300 witnesses, why hasn't the government been involved? They've been involved for years, for years and years and years. And there's available declassified documents on this stuff. That some of the documents, I was just watching a show earlier today. It was, they admit in these government documents that are available to the public, you just have to get them, that we did have bodies, that we had bodies in the 40s, we had bodies in the 50s, we had bodies before Roswell. So, I mean, there was another, in April of 2001, there was another whistleblower who came forward with a very similar story as Grush, except he had firsthand witness, like he personally witnessed this encounter, as did the 60 plus other people that he mentioned. And it was actually on an Art Bell episode that I heard that broadcast. His name was Deke Richards. I can't find out what happened to him since then. I can't find anything about him, but he came forward with a very similar story as Grush did. And then he fell off the face of the earth. But that story, I mean, you say, okay, well, if you would believe Grush, if he came forward with tangible evidence, I mean, this guy who came forward 20 years ago already did have that evidence, was a firsthand account witness, specifically said not only were there 60 other witnesses that could have attested to the situation, but his friend, I think he called him Mike, also was willing to talk about it. And then all of a sudden, boom, gone, disappeared. So the government's involved, and it's just a matter of, again, which take you see. And I think that there is part of government involvement keeping things from us because, yes, they have in their mind that we need to be protected. I do think that's part of it. But I think there's a whole bunch of other things going on. I think one of those is that there are extraterrestrial visiting. I think another one is that there are other individuals that are not associated with our government, but who are associated with our government that are involved in these UFO sightings. And I think there are actually government involvement in it. And I mean, there's going back to Project Blue Book, I can rattle off so many different government involvement in all of this stuff. They've been taking it seriously for at least 100 years now.
Dr. Michael Shermer has to get going in just a minute, I believe.
That's right. Thank you.
But I just want to let everyone know he is the founding publisher, as you've heard, of Skeptic Magazine. He's also the host of the podcast, The Michael Shermer Show. He's also a stand-up guy, by the way. We've been emailing back and forth, and he's offered to come on And he's a big get, as they say in the journalism world. This guy was on the Joe Rogan show, which I plan to overtake one day. We all have to have goals, and I will upend Joe Rogan before my time is over.
Yeah.
That is not a conspiracy theory. He's also Michael is the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Why People Believe Weird Things. I definitely do, but not about aliens. And The Believing Brain. Jennifer here says, what would Carmela say? I love this. WWKS. I got to get a shirt made for that for the merch store. But as you guys all know, because I've plugged it, and my mom is horrified when I do, I am just wrapping up a book about the subtitle is A Brutally Honest Conversation About Life with my mom, a Holocaust survivor, a licensed therapist, and my podcast co-host. And at the end of the book, she says, what the hell do I know, Joel? I'm just an old lady. I don't know anything. So that's what I would say. Michael, where do we go next with, in particular, this Dave Grush story? As you mentioned, Marco Rubio is involved. Will there be hearings? Will we get to the bottom of this?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I'm tired of talking about people's credentials and, eyewitnesses who said they know somebody who saw something. Let's just expose it. What have we got? And again, I don't know what I don't know. So, maybe there's government secrets that I'm not supposed to know, or you and I are not supposed to know. Who knows? Paige is right. I mean, writing my conspiracy book, there's a ton of stuff that the U.S. government has lied to the citizens about. That's what the Pentagon Papers was about. Daniel Ellsberg just died. And the Afghanistan Papers, the extent to which the government lied to us about how the war was going in Afghanistan. And all the whistleblower stuff with the WikiLeaks and all that, just tons of stuff, not just Republican or Democrat, all administrations and all government agencies lie. So, of course, that doesn't mean that your particular belief about what they're lying about is true. It just means we know they can't always be trusted, for sure. So I am hoping somebody in the power or position of Marco Rubio can do something about it. But I'm not highly confident after all these decades that Bill Clinton famously said, I'm going to get to the bottom of Roswell. And then, we just never heard about it. That's usually what happens with these stories. It's unfortunate. I'm tired of hearing about this. Let's get to the bottom of it and expose it. I see now on my checking my Twitter feed that we have this last final 1% of documents related to JFK assassination that administration after administration has been promising they will release, and Biden announced last night he will not be releasing them after all. So it's like, come on.
Here's my surprise face.
Yeah.
And make
so
sure
it's not just Trump or Obama. It's Biden. It's everybody. We're going to do this, and then they don't. Why? I don't know why. Maybe because it would expose the CIA was involved in the assassination of JFK. More likely, in my opinion, the CIA has done a lot of embarrassing things. Rigging elections in foreign countries, assassinating foreign leaders. Maybe it's something like that, and they just don't want our allies to know that we've done shit like this. I don't know, but come on, just release it. Enough.
Michael, when you release your next book on these conspiracy theories, we can talk JFK, and I promise I'll give Scott Roeder a Xanax.
Only mono. I'll go.
All right.
Mono.
Well, bye, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it very much.
All
Thank
right.
you. I'll be in
Good
touch
luck.
offline.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, the rest of us, we can stay on. Are you down to stay down a couple of minutes? Stay on a couple of minutes here. Let's see.
Talk UFOs all night.
So, Paige, to you, same question, I guess. Where do you think this all goes next with David Grush? I mean, I kind of anticipated Michael saying what he did say, which is David Grush appears to believe everything that he is saying, but it also appears to be, in a legal term, hearsay, right? That he's getting it from other people, not direct evidence. So how problematic is that, in your opinion, from as a lawyer I'm talking about now?
It's not problematic at all, in my opinion, because there are so many other witnesses to back him up. There are plenty of other individuals who have already testified to Congress about their personal firsthand experience with this stuff. So Dave, I mean, I don't know why they decided to put him out into the media, maybe because he didn't see this stuff firsthand, but there are I don't know if seeing it firsthand is going to be enough for some people, because even when I had mentioned that earlier, I mean, there are plenty of individuals who have seen this stuff firsthand. Plenty of individuals who have testified under oath to Congress about this stuff already. So in my opinion, we're past the point of, do UFOs exist? I mean, the government has not only come out recently and said that they exist, they've said that for years now. They've been involved for 100 years now. We don't even need, at this point, we don't even need to talk about that. In my opinion, we need to talk about why has it been hidden from us? What aspects are really involved with the government versus what aspects are being controlled by other entities that are not necessarily government? And what does that mean for us? I mean, what is the technology? If this technology is available to us, or if this technology, like Michael said, is in fact our government's, or, what does that mean? And what does access to having that technology mean for the general population? And so I think, again, what I want to see is, one, the stigma of all of this just has to stop if we're going to get anywhere. It's just like, you can't, it's all made so laughable. It's easy. It makes it that much easier to ignore. But getting rid of
good point.
Yeah.
I make maybe a dumb analogy, but prior to the pandemic, that show Doomsday Preppers was huge, and everyone that I know goofed on that show. As people are stocking up, and all of a sudden the pandemic hits, and those guys don't look so crazy. And it brings me back again to the early Art Bell days. I was just listening to an episode. It sounds kooky, it sounds wacky, but I guess the lesson that I am learning is you've got to keep an open mind. You just don't know. And again, it is hard for the human mind to wrap around the fact that this is an infinite universe. It goes on forever and ever and ever. So there's in my opinion, got to be some other life form out there doing something. I don't know what they're up to, but maybe they're visiting Earth. Just so you guys know, Space Coast, he is my brother-in-law. He is the chief technical officer's brother. And he makes perhaps the best comment of the night here. Zuckerberg might be an alien. Yeah.
I don't disbelieve anything. Everything is possible at this point. That is what my overall take has been from all of this, is that there is nothing that I think is impossible at this point. Whether it's what the government is hiding or what has and hasn't happened, nothing is impossible at this point.
He's from my home state of New Jersey, where there are a lot of aliens. I wouldn't be surprised if he was an alien. But shout out to Space Coast and the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer. Someone said, Scott Roeder, that there's no way Joan Jett believes in aliens. Do you think she does?
I don't know, but I just saw her in concert in Cleveland, and she's 60-some years old, and she's still rocked the house down. It was amazing. I mean, I'm 53, so when I saw Joan Jett back in the 80s, I fell in love with that style of rock and roll, right? And I saw her again just 2 months ago, I guess, and she was still fantastic. And she probably believes in UFOs. Yeah, maybe.
Roeder, you and I are the same age, and I'm thinking I'm going to get tat sleeves just to piss off my mom, but we'll see.
Yeah. Paige, this was an evolution over 20 years. I started getting one by one, little by little. Yeah.
It grows. Paige, this is interesting to me. I was looking up some, news of the day. This was in a publication, and I should have written it down, but I didn't, in a fairly reputable one. And it talks about Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher. He's from Wisconsin. Again, a United States congressman, a sitting congressman. And he has raised, quote unquote, unconventional theories about UFOs. He was on the Pat McAfee show and suggested that unidentified flying objects could be part of an ancient civilization that has long been concealed on Earth, but is just now starting to reveal itself. The bigger question here is, what about the fact that people in the higher levels of government are now coming out and, telling us their quote, some of them are telling us their real feelings about certain things. And to some, it sounds a little wackadoodle. What do you make of this?
I think it's a stigma. I think, in politics in general, it's going to come down to money, whatever side you're on. If you're wanting to get certain votes from certain sides, you have to stick with the story. But I think in general, it's also just the stigma of everything, and people being concerned about whether or not to come forward. I mean, again, that I've seen claims that people want to make money and whatnot. No, anything that I've seen so far in any of the research I've done, nobody has a good time when they come forward about any of this stuff, because it's stigmatized. But I think that more and more people will come forward, because like I said, there are currently, as we speak, and they have been all year now, giving their testimony under oath to Congress. So it's out there. So for any skeptic who, I mean, you just need to look. It's out there. And there's also been a lot of involvement with presidents over 50, 60 years at this point. So again, I mean, it's all there. The government has been involved for a long time. Their involvement varies, I think. And it really, I mean, it's going to depend on the narrative that you're following, because there is a lot of information out there. But to say that there's no government involvement or that they haven't known what's going on would be false. But how much is pocketed and who has what information is what's relevant. And so all of Congress is now hearing all of this testimony and is able to come forward with it. A lot of them have had no idea what was going on, or had no idea what our government was capable of, or our military, or the corporations that help run this country. Their involvement, there's just a lot there. And I think that if to prepare for what could potentially come out, it just start looking into it, because it's all out there. I went into this having zero thought that I would believe any of it. I never did. And
Paige, what about the, it's interesting because you said you were a huge true crime fan. This is a true crime podcast. What about the intersection of true crime and this world? How do you see them intersecting?
Well, exactly like this. I mean, pointing to the evidence, showing people, it's not two separate things. It's an interest, and it all commingles and everything. Because if you look at part of why I got so involved in it was because I was getting frustrated with the system, and every situation it seemed broken. And then you find out more and more about the UFOs and the technology and everything that's involved there, and you realize all of this could be fixed. We could be in a much, much, much better situation than we are right now if people just started paying attention to what actually matters. And for whatever reason, what actually matters, this topic, what stems from this topic, things that our government has been involved in for years, but it's portrayed as weird, or, it's all there. And it's available. And you just have to be the one to go out and find it.
And we're going to, Scott, I'm going to jump in 2 seconds, and we're going to continue to follow Paige as she develops this group of attorneys and other legal minds that are going to start to examine this in more depth. Bridgewater says, always be skeptical of the government, followed by Michelle, who says, I believe the Navy and Air Force pilots. Scott, I was going to ask you, in 2021, the Pentagon released a report on UAP. They found more than 140 instances of UAP encounters that could not be explained. From your perspective, as a guy that likes to reconstruct things and explain them that way, what do you make of that all these different sightings just simply could not be explained?
Well, I mean, it goes to show that I think the government is trying to have their cake and eat it too, to use the worst analogy ever, because at one point, they're on the record, right, for the last, 90 years of saying this is all garbage, right? Just settle down out there. There's nothing to see. Go on home and eat your mashed potatoes. Don't bother us about this. Meanwhile, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, on this subject for the last 50 years. They've off-putted, most likely, the evidence suggests, this technology to private corporations to get around FOIA, and companies like Skunkworks and Raytheon and all these companies are private profiteers of this stuff. Very similar to, I think, one of your people here on the chat brought up Nikola Tesla and the wireless electricity that was invented at the turn of the century when Nikola Tesla built a tower in New York City and put energy, free electricity from that tower to, I think, somewhere in Texas, and then from there to the Eiffel Tower in France without a line at the turn of the century. But yet J.P. Morgan, that son of a bitch, wanted to put meters and lines and make our world ugly and disgusting when we could have had free energy since the turn of the century. So Occam's razor, yes, Paige, Occam's razor is, what is the motivation? The motivation is money. The motivation is profit. The motivation is war mongering. And I think it's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Occam's razor. Look it up. Google it. I am not T-Pain. Paige, how would you explain the UFO I saw disappearing right in front of my eyes? A coworker was with me and saw the same thing. Do you believe they could be interdimensional?
I do. I think it could be interdimensional. I think it could be a time traveler. I think it could be our government. I think it could be a secret government. I think there are a lot of different options, and you're seeing all of those that do already exist. But yeah, I mean, we have, it's been proven, or I've talked with whistleblowers who have witnessed our technology that can just disappear. The technology that is actually out there is really pretty mind blowing. Something like, it's what we have that, I mean, I never would have thought. I never looked into any of this, but again, it's out there. It's all available, and there are hundreds of people coming forward about it. So.
Paige, I told you, look at Doxy. Please, sir, let the lady speak. By the way, these comments, I'm way behind. This is like from an hour ago.
Yeah, you're way over.
I couldn't keep up, but I knew I was going to get it. But look, Paige has been, I'm letting her speak. I know my audience. I knew I'd get yelled at. I told you I'd get yelled at, and I am, so I knew that.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning something from Paige, not the professional party pooper.
The professional party pooper.
That's hard for me. It's hard.
Paige, go ahead. No,
it's just frustrating to say. I mean, I personally do not understand how somebody can look into this for 3 days, let alone 30 years, and then be able to truthfully say that they don't think that it's happening. I mean, I have a hard time believing that. So,
Bridgewater
speaks for itself.
Does Carm believe in aliens? And I will answer for her. She says, nothing would surprise me, Joel. Nothing would surprise me, Joel. So that's what she would say to this. She wouldn't, you know what? If an alien landed on my mother's balcony right now and brought her a bouquet of flowers, my mother would say thank you and go right to sleep. She just, she's you can't face her. Yeah, look at this. This is actually a very good point. Carm is a skeptic and a believer. Unique combo. She is. She's both. She's both at once, if that's possible.
It is possible. I would say that I am still to this day. I mean, I will always be a skeptic because what are you going to trust that's out there? You know, you just have to keep looking, but it is all out there. There are a lot of resources that are really good.
Look at this, Scott Roeder from Ski Hat Sarah, one of my favorites. Give him a tranquilizer. That was early on. We're just getting to it.
I love it.
Paige, to you, we've had Dr.
I just don't deal with BS, man. I mean, when somebody listen, I'm a shooting scene reconstruction expert. When some layman comes up to me and talks to me about shooting scenes, I'm going to put him back in his seat. Sorry.
No, you're all Cleveland all the time, baby. I love it. I love it.
That's all I got. That's all I got. I got one speed.
Yeah, I just said to myself, "Holy crap, man! I feel like I just landed on Mars, and now I got these guys yelling at each other, and I got a deal." So that was my own issue.
I didn't know what to expect, but that was a fun start.
That was fun. No, I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't. And I do have to apologize. I was reading some of these comments. People thought I was being rude. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Whatever. But listen. If you're going to talk about a phenomenon, use a scientific process. He's very anecdotal in his skepticism, and that's where I'm skeptical of his skepticism.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good way to put it. Scott Michael says Paige Fox with the Fox emoji is one cool, knowledgeable UFO lawyer. I love it. Paige, to you, we've had Dr. Avi Loeb on. He's a Harvard astrophysicist. He believes he saw an alien spacecraft way out. How I have my meager little brain has no way to understand what he's even talking about, but using telescopes and scientific equipment, he believes he did see this spacecraft in a different galaxy, far away, as they once said. But he came out not long ago. He was supposed to come on the show a week or two ago, but he's been abroad. He said that we're going to start to hear talk about this as soon as the next presidential State of the Union. Do you agree with that?
That would, I mean, again, that would track with the timing of everything. You have to be careful with what you say and when you say it because of politics. But yeah, that would track. I mean, there's a lot of different narratives out there. One of them is Project Bluebeam, with the idea of,
that's scary.
Yeah, like a fake alien invasion. I mean, that's one thing that right away was like, well, we just have to tell people about this because that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different narratives, and things seem to be coming to the public eye more and more. Again, with the Grush stuff and then the Vegas stuff. There was the disclosure conference earlier in June. We now have this legal team. There's true crime podcasts that are focusing on this stuff, which is huge. So yeah, I mean, it's coming out into the public. It's just a matter of hopefully it's handled in a way that, one, is nonpartisan, and two, that is truthful and that is for what is best for the world, all humans, not because there are a lot of other beings out there. But I mean, humans at this point, we're going to make the decisions on how to handle this. So yeah, it's important to, I think it's coming, and it's important to make sure to keep that on the public front, even when the election comes forward, because that's something that could be a big turn.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment on Bluebeam, Paige?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the recent bill that was written, and I think a draft of it was put out for public comment. One of the provisions is going to be kind of a call out to all private corporations. If you were given non-earthly technology, Skunkworks, all these corporations, Raytheon, so on and so forth, Lockheed Martin particularly, you have 6 months from the time the bill is announced to give back to the government all of that technology.
Yes.
And that's where I'm afraid, and it's kind of like starts with and or else, right? Or else what? We're going to go storm the laboratories over there at Lockheed Martin and say, give me my UFO back. When you've gifted it to the private industry for profiteering to sell you back weapons of war. Okay. That's what all of this is about. Instead of using the technology for clean energy, free electricity, healthy food, better medicine, better spirituality, all of that stuff.
Hunger.
Solve world hunger, solve malaria, solve AIDS, solve everything. All this technology instead of that, fight. Let's war. That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. War versus peace. And the people who have motive for money want war, because guess what? You make a lot of money at war. You don't make a lot of money making people healthy and happy. I feel like it's that simple. I hate to be such a cynic, but I'm 53. I've seen the world. You see what people are. We've proven people suck, and people with money suck even worse, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, and I think people don't really suck, but the top 1% is definitely taking advantage of a lot of shit. And it's digging the rest of us into a big hole that we don't need to be there. I mean, I get it. Like, again, it was a hard thing for me to grasp too. But when you start looking, it's all right there. And then when you're somebody who has spent their entire career trying to fix all these systems, trying to fix people, within healthcare and domestic violence and family law and every single imaginable area, everybody is struggling. It's everybody. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, if you associate with Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. Everybody is struggling. And you're having to work 3 different jobs to pay rent because all of these costs are skyrocketing when they don't need to be. Well, I mean, what the hell are we doing when we have the technology available to us that we don't even need gasoline to be driving cars? We don't need oil. We don't need any of this. We only have it because people who are making money.
And what happened to the guy that invented the car engine that runs on water?
Yes,
what happened to him? What happened to that guy?
In a dying declaration, his dying declaration, which is admissible in court, that is admissible hearsay, was they poisoned me. I mean,
in the court of law, a final death statement is considered ironclad truth.
Well,
we
have a lot of shows to cover. The water guy, we've got Jeffrey Epstein. It's
Bridgewater.
An endless list. Andy School, friend of the show. Hello from Detroit. Hit the like button for Joel was sick. Phil and Scott on y'all. Which president came out and told their story about encountering a UFO? I know that Nixon was showing Jackie Gleason stuff, apparently, that he wasn't supposed to be showing. But I don't think Michael Shermer would like that. We're going to wrap it up in a second. Paige, back to you here. So not only is, Congress working, apparently, I don't know how hard to get to sort of the bottom to some of these questions, but now also there's an organization that's led by pilots called Americans for Safe Aerospace. They just announced that they are launching the first pilot-led advocacy organization dedicated to UAPs. It is being formed by a former Navy jet a fighter pilot named Ryan Graves, and they are pushing for policy changes and trying to figure out what is going on with all of these sightings. I assume you think this is good. These are people that are coming together to try to get answers who are in the government. I mean, in either once in the Air Force or now commercial airliners who are up in the skies. So they'd be the people that you want gathering information. Am I right about thinking that you think that this is probably a good idea to create a nonprofit like this?
I think it's incredible. I think any professional that can come forward and make this a legitimate topic is huge. So yeah, I think that's very helpful.
Well, listen, we really appreciate it. For those who do not know, and I didn't know her prior to tonight, and I made the grave mistake of spelling her name without an I, which I will never do again because she barked back at me. Paige with an I. N. Fox was selected as a rising star by super lawyers, an honor earned by only 2.5% of the top attorneys in Illinois 40 years old or younger. Who have practiced for 10 years or less. What all that means is she's a badass attorney at a rather young age. Paige is now working actively to help prove to the general public that this stuff, meaning UAPs, aliens, all sorts of strange phenomenon, is not only real, but its implications are profoundly connected to our everyday lives and therefore very much worth our collective attention. So Paige, tell us just a little bit more. What are you going to be doing kind of on a day-to-day basis in this vein, and what is the end game?
So, like I said, I'm working with Derek Garcia. He's an attorney in New Mexico. The plan is to basically open a firm between the two of us, and we have started reaching out to volunteers. I created this form for people to fill out, and we have had 160 people respond to the form so far. So there's like a bunch of attorneys, retired and active attorneys, investigators. We have law clerks, law students, paralegals, legal assistants that are coming.
Need any crime experts?
I mean, I was going to tell you are exactly, yes, because everything that you were talking about with the the Vegas stuff, you can go through all of the cases that I've seen that I've
get Rotor in on it. Rotor in on it.
I'm in with your Page. If you want me, I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 100%. Because again, it's just about, that's the one aspect of just legitimizing the conversation to begin with. The other side is that's more what Derek is working on, Derek Garcia, and working with Dr. Stephen Greer, and the whistleblowers that he's been working with since 2001 on the RICO actions. So essentially, so the people who need to come forward with the 6 month, the 6 month date, come forward now. Otherwise, there is going to be lawsuits in the future. And that's all been disclosed to Congress. Our group is having our second meeting this coming Friday. It'll only be a second one because we met right before the disclosure conference. But again, there's like 180 people, and the individuals who have reached out so far, they're all insanely impressive and intelligent. They have so much experience, and I'm very excited to work with all of them. The ones that I've met already are absolutely wonderful. And I think that we can get stuff done. I mean, I think especially if between our groups, between a pilot group, between, crime scene people, podcasters, just getting the word out there is huge.
I was going to say, if you need a podcaster / ex-journalist, let me know. I'm game. Right. Scott Roeder, he is the man. He's the founder of the Evidence Room. He is an internationally recognized evidence specialist. He's consulted over 1,500 cases since 2001. He employs a team of specialists with backgrounds in art, 3D modeling, et cetera, et cetera. He is also host of the podcast. It is called Crime Scene Time Machine. Crime Scene. You got to get a hat made. I want a hat. Crime Scene.
Yeah, I got a great logo. It's a little crime scene expert in a spaceship, right?
There you go. You got to put it on a. You got to put on a hat. Zan says I could listen for 2 more hours. Scott Roeder, your final thoughts.
I think my final thought is going to be amnesty. Okay, if we're going to take this subject really seriously, right? We've got to look at what motivates people to tell the truth. And when you're looking at private industry or institutions, government agencies, so on and so forth, they don't want their head cut off and put on a spike. You've been lying for 90 years, Frankenstein, right? We need to give amnesty to these people for their prior bad deeds of hiding the ball for their nefarious purposes. And just say at this particular point, right now, moving forward, just tell the truth. You get a clean slate. Let's us all be humans, move forward together and work like a team. And I think if we had a groundswell of support for amnesty, disclosure would come a lot faster and it would be a lot truer. Just my opinion.
Scott, thank you for your input. Thanks for filling us in on the backyard in Las Vegas. Let's see how that plays out. Paige, thank you. Thanks to Dr. Michael Shermer, the skeptic of all skeptics, and Ron James. His documentary is The Accidental Truth.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Yeah, I might watch that tonight. Let me tell you something. Speaking of true crime, and I don't want to take us down a deep, dark rabbit hole, but I watched that HBO has a doc on Jared the Subway guy. If you want to get super disturbed and lose all faith in humanity, I suggest watching that tonight. But as far as programming goes, don't watch it. I have 3 kids. It was brutal. It was torture to watch. That guy's a sick bastard. Anyway, quick programming note. What does this say here? From Andy School, best guest is always Joel, COO, and Cohen. That is Steve Cohen, otherwise known as Meave Moen. Love to Carm. I will say hello to her. Quick programming note. Tomorrow night, live, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to do a big show on Brian Kohberger, all the latest wranglings, both in and out of court. We've got an amazing panel. Gene Fisher, the longest-serving prosecutor in Ada County in Boise, Idaho. We've got Tara Malik, defense attorney, and we've got Kevin Fixler from the Idaho Statesman, the investigative reporter, who breaks a ton of news related to Kohberger. That is tomorrow night. And Wednesday, we're going to bring you a show on the Utah mom who allegedly poisoned her husband. We're going to be covering that Wednesday. Tuesday, I need a 4th of July show. I'm going to figure it out. I will let you know. Follow me at Podcast STS. Until then, love you, America. Love you, Chicago. Love you, the land, Cleveland. Until next time. Guys, stay on for 1 sec.